China.
All right, what's up, guys? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. Yes, we are once again live at our normal time, 11 a.m. Eastern. It's April 9th, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. We are getting very, very, very close to passing the 3 million subscriber situation on YouTube. We have never put one dime into advertising this show. This has all been done organically. So I thank you for in advance, but if you have not subscribed, please do. And apologies, there was no show yesterday. You know, on Monday I had to leave. We sort of cut it early, and then I said we were going to do a show at 4 p.m. yesterday. And I didn't exactly want to say why yet because it was kind of on the DL. But yes, I did meet on Monday night. It was last second. I got a call Sunday evening. Could I get to D.C. and meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? There were about 15 of us sort of in the, whatever you want to call it, the influencer space. Some people were very obvious supporters of Israel. Some people kind of indifferent. A couple of people that I don't think particularly liked Israel very much. He sat around the table with all of us. He did something very interesting. And then we'll get to the show, obviously. He said, look, I want to take every question I possibly can here, whether you agree with me or not. He said, I like to take the questions first. And he had a whole bunch of us. Tim Pool was there. I'm not really supposed to. They have Chatham House rules, which is a very specific set of rules as to what you're allowed to report on after and everything else. But I think I can basically say this. There were a couple of people that you know in there, a couple of people. I know a few people that I don't know personally, but I know from Twitter, blah, blah, blah. He took all the questions up top, he wrote everything down, and he said, all right, let's start talking about it. And he went on, like, we asked him everything. People asked him, obviously, about the hostages, about the relationship with America, about foreign aid. People asked him about what's going on with Iran. People asked him, obviously, he had just been called in by Trump to talk about tariffs and the rest of that, which we'll get to later. And he did 3 hours, basically, nonstop, no question off limits. There were definitely some things that were tough to talk about, but I was just deeply impressed with his history. He was kind of funny also. And to be clear, because I posted the picture of us this morning on Twitter, and there's nothing like posting a picture of an Israeli prime minister to get out some real hate in your morning when people start responding to you. If any prime minister or a president invited me to DC to come chat and be part of a roundtable to discuss things, I would be there. I happen to support this guy, obviously, but I would do it if the president of Mexico called or the prime minister of Poland or whatever it might be. So anyway, it was a pretty powerful moment. Also, to the backdrop of all of this, we were at the Blair House, which is kind of the official White House guest house when people stay. And, there were all sorts of protests and the usual, security was crazy. But, in the backdrop, we could hear the crazy chants the entire time, and there's alarms and fire trucks and everything else. And I said to him at one point, I was like, I was sitting basically right across from him at the table. And I said to him, does that ever bother you? And he's like, what? Like, he was like, oh, I don't even hear that anymore. Like, just the endless chants and everything else. On like the most somber note, although it was quite inspiring, and I think it's a day I'll always remember, I did have like one weird moment where I was like, man, those like hundreds of crazy people out there, like if they could overrun security and get into the building, like they would try to kill all of us. Me too, like absolutely. There's just no doubt about that. And that is a weird situation that I think we find ourselves in at the moment. However, that's not really what this show is about today. We're mostly doing the trade stuff and the tariff stuff and the market stuff and all of that stuff because that really is what's going on. Obviously, markets are down. They did not sort of crash the way everyone thought they were going to crash starting on Monday. Obviously, way down on Friday. Monday wasn't so terrible. We'll see what happens today. So we're going to have a whole bunch on that, and then just general Democrat gaslighting and how the way to win is what Trump has consistently done, which is be right on the 80-20 issue. So, okay, let's start with the tariffs. And my friend, the brilliant Douglas Murray, was on Gutfeld a couple days ago, and this is a quick one, but he made what I think is the right point here. That Donald Trump is just doing exactly what he said he was going to do. You may not like it, but Donald Trump's doing what he said he was going to do. It may not work, but Donald Trump is doing exactly what he said he's going to do. And people are just not used to a politician doing that.
The really interesting thing about the tariffs thing, though, is I think they're genuinely shocked because the president is doing something he said he would do.
Yeah.
Every time I saw President Trump on the campaign trail at a rally, tariffs always came up.
Yeah, he didn't hide it.
He didn't say it. He said the lovely tariffs, we're going to bring them back in, lovely tariffs.
And they elected him.
And then they elected him. And then he did what he said he'd do. And then they're like, how dare he?
Yes.
We're used to you lying to us.
Yes.
We're used
You're
to
not supposed to do this.
You can say it. You're not meant to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just genuine shock.
You know what's funny about that? I don't even know. I know Douglas really well. I know a lot of his opinions on a lot of stuff. I don't even know Douglas's opinions on tariffs, actually. But I thought that was the right way to start the show today, because we are so not used to politicians running on something and then doing it when the entire machine and the media and all the international people and the globalists and everything else are against you. So that's sort of the framework for today's show, that what we're seeing is a guy who quite literally, I've got a video from 30 years ago, so literally 30 years ago, was saying there is something wrong here and we better change course.
I couldn't believe this last auto deal as an example. Here we are, we're sitting there. It's restricted in Japan. Everything's restricted. We're sitting, they can't come in. And all of a sudden, this country falls. We do the old fall down. I've never seen it.
That isn't the way the press reported it. Well, the press reported it that we had a deal.
And then all of a sudden it turned out that the deal turned out that it was not a good deal for us. And we had all the cards. I mean, it's not like we didn't have the cards. It's like, keep your cars out of here until you open up. That's all. Keep your cars out. And then the first hour was like, oh, we made this wonderful deal. After about 15 seconds after that, people realized we got duped. I just don't understand it. I would take a much harder stand. I'd take a much more difficult stand, I would say. Make a couple of enemies. I think I'd make a lot of friends, ultimately. I think we'd be better off, and I think we'd be far more respected. I think the Japanese would respect us far more than they do. I don't think they have any respect for us, and they shouldn't have any respect for us, because we are idiots when it comes to what's happening. I mean, look at dealing with Japan. I mean, just take a look at what's going on. I mean, they make hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and we lose money in deficits, and nothing happens. And they say, no, the Japanese are learning, and they're starting to open up. In the meantime, every second goes by, we're losing. I just think that people would have far greater respect for this country if we took a much tougher stand. It's really cool.
So look, it's not just that he's doing exactly what Douglas said, which is that he campaigned on all of this stuff and said tariffs, and they're beautiful and they're elegant and amazing and wonderful. It's not just that he was doing it months ago. 30 years ago, he's doing the exact same thing. He also has an incredible way, and it's why I like showing you those old videos of him, of explaining the counter position, or explaining the people who are taking advantage of us, their position. It doesn't mean that Japan is bad. But if Americans are basically offering Japan a sweet deal for them and a shitty deal for us, well, then Japan is going to take that deal, right? That's how it is. And then would you respect the guy who's just given you ridiculously good deals and something that's bad for him? You probably wouldn't respect him, but you'd be happy to do business with him. So what does he say? So when we change things, we are going to make some enemies. And as we know, he campaigned on the idea that there's going to be some pain points. We seem to be going into one of those pain points at the moment. And the truth of the matter is, whether you like tariffs or not, and we're going to do a panel show this Friday with somebody on the anti-tariff side, and we're going to do on the pro-tariff side, because I want to get as many opinions on this as possible. You know my opinion, which is basically it's leverage right now, which is also what they're saying. The point is, whether you like them or not, other people are doing them to us. So us pushing back is not in and of itself bad. We showed you this clip on Monday, but it's just a 20-second, and it's worth showing you again. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent explaining that if tariffs are bad, then why is everyone doing it to us?
A lot of our trading partners, including some of our allies, have not been good partners. If tariffs are so bad, why do they have them?
Great question.
Why do they have them, right? Or if the American consumer is going to pay all the tariff, then why do they care about tariffs?
Right.
Because they're going to eat them.
Right. So another way to think about this would be is if we had fair trade deals with everybody, or even roughly fair trade deals, like maybe there's some asymmetry for whatever reason and it would be different with every country. But let's say things were like kind of roughly fair. Do you think this would be happening? But things have been so out of whack. We have had so little access to so many markets, which is why all of our manufacturing has collapsed and everyone sells to us. We're going to read some numbers, see in a little bit, on the amount of stuff that China sends our way and we send basically nothing their way. So they're using our market. So Trump now, by threatening them with tariffs, is saying, if you do not come to the table with something more fair, you're going to lose access to our market. And then they're just going to have a bunch of crap with nobody buying it. And that would be a problem for them. Well, more on the other side, but first, Rumble Premium. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We've always believed in empowering voices no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their backs, claiming Rumble had a right-wing culture. But we're not here to fit a mold, we're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, and the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription, it's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using promo code Rubin. Visit rumble.com/premium/Rubin and claim your discount today. Together, we can turn the tide. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. Okay, so let's talk about how now that we had our Liberation Day and there are some new deals coming to light, how things are changing. Well, this is Eric Daughtry from Florida Voice News. Just in, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was just ordered to begin negotiations now with Japan to usher in the golden age of global trade with the island nation. And here's Bessent again explaining that now 70 countries who we have had bad deals with are suddenly willing to renegotiate those deals. I'm shocked and appalled.
I haven't seen anything from them, but Larry, I can tell you that there are 50, 60, maybe almost 70 countries now who have approached us. So it's going to be a busy April, May, maybe into June. And Japan is a very important military ally. They're a very important economic ally. And the U.S. has a lot of history with them. So I would expect that Japan's going to get priority just because they came forward very quickly. But it's going to be very busy. And if President Trump again gave himself maximum negotiating leverage, and just when he achieved the maximum leverage, he's willing to start talking.
So again, whether you like tariffs or don't like tariffs, nobody's saying that we weren't getting screwed. Everyone is understanding that the U.S. has been getting screwed. Trump's been saying it for 3 decades. We then come in, we say, oh, we're going to tariff you. And now 50, 60, maybe 70 countries are dropping tariffs, or they're at least coming to the negotiating table. And he's saying that countries like Japan that are coming first are going to be rewarded quickly. So if you're the lone holdout at the end, you're probably going to get screwed. This is literally art of the deal stuff. It is happening right in front of our eyes. And here's Trump himself saying this was the only way anything was ever going to change.
I will say this, virtually every country wants to negotiate. If I didn't do what I did over the last couple of weeks, you wouldn't have anybody wants to negotiate. We would have gone to these countries who want to talk, and they, well, we don't want to talk. Now they're coming to us. They're offering things like even Bibi, and this is unrelated because it's a different kind of a relationship, but he started off our conversation today that he's cutting all of the tariffs, he's cutting everything, he's going to get down to a free base, he's going to do things that, in all fairness, other countries, if they said that, would have never even thought about doing it. Now they're offering things to us that we would have never even thought of asking them for because they're experiencing a lot of hurt. And the hurt is that they've taken advantage of us and we finally fought back.
That is exactly, we should make a short where we show him from 30 years ago, the clip that we just showed you, and then go right into that. He's saying the exact same thing. He's not blaming the countries that have been taking advantage of us. He's blaming us for letting them do it for 3+ decades, right? And now he's saying, I decided to change the deal and we're going to see who our friends are. So my friends sitting to my left, Bibi right here, eliminating it. Japan eliminating it. Argentina eliminating it. There's a laundry list of countries coming in, eliminating tariffs, and then other countries that will negotiate. And it's not going to be 0-0 for everybody. It isn't. There are different things that different countries need. It is what it is. Here's Netanyahu saying, yeah, we're getting rid of the whole thing.
We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. We intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. And we're going to also eliminate trade barriers, a variety of trade barriers that have been put up unnecessarily. And I think Israel can serve as a model for many countries who ought to do the same. I recognize the position of the United States. It says, we're allowing other countries to put tariffs on us, but we don't put tariffs on them. And, I'm a free trade champion, and free trade has to be fair trade. And I think that's basically the position that you have put forward, Mr. President. We are going to eliminate the tariffs, and rapidly. I had the opportunity to speak to Secretary Lutnick yesterday. We talked about how we could effect this quickly, and I hope to bring a solution very quickly. We're not talking about intentions. We're not talking about just words. We're talking about results. And those results are going to come in. So that's the first
Thank you very much. That's very nice. Thank you.
I want to say, I think, they had these, as I said, specific rules, these Chatham House rules at the roundtable that I went to that evening. But when Bibi was asked about the tariffs and the trade situation, he said, look, it's going to be a little bit of a pain point for us. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it fast. It's the right thing to do. And I think that that's what other countries are going to do. And then when you do right by us, like you might be watching this going, well, wait a minute, why did we have this asymmetrical deal with Israel? Why did we have an asymmetrical deal with Japan? Why did we have... Well, don't blame Trump and don't blame Japan or Israel or anyone else. Blame our ridiculous leaders for decades who let everybody into our house to basically rape and pillage, take from our economy, and not give anything back. And then you wonder why our factories are closing and all of those things. And as it happens, and this is why the Bessent thing earlier, when he said, okay, Japan's going to be in good shape because they came quickly here. Clearly, Israel's coming quickly. Argentina, I mentioned a few other countries. What happens is the countries that get in early, Trump. Trump likes people that come around to him. And then what that creates is a domino effect. Here's White House National Security Council Chief Alex Gray talking about that.
Well, he says over 50 leaders have reached out, tried to get calls with the president. I think Vietnam is one that they've also said they want to go to zero. I think Taiwan could very quickly add in some things like more purchases of American-made weapons, spend more on defense. I think, John, we're going to have a domino effect of countries all over the globe shaping up, or they're going to have to live with a permanent situation where America is no longer going to be the chump and take what other countries are dishing out at us. And President Trump, like he said, is resetting the global trading system, and he's doing it in a remarkably short period of time.
Okay, again, a lot of things happening quickly, domino effect. If you want to get access to American markets, we buy a lot of stuff in America. That's what we do. We're consumers. We're the richest nation on the planet, at least for now, until China calls in their debts, and then we're going to have another big problem, but we'll have more in China in just a minute. But here, this is interesting. This is Louisiana Senator John Kennedy. He is not a tariff guy. But here he is explaining that this is about negotiations so we can get a fairer deal. And I like showing clips like this where you see someone who has a position. It's what I showed you last week from Thomas Sowell, 94 years old. There is no economist who has affected my thinking more than that guy. It is probably the best interview I've ever done. He's against tariffs. So I'm trying to show you both positions on this. And here's Sowell is against it at sort of the most purist intellectual level. He doesn't like the idea of tariffs. Here's Kennedy kind of splitting the difference, saying he doesn't like tariffs, but we can't play in this game where one set, as I said the other day, has the monopoly money access, and we're just sitting there going, I'm on Baltic Avenue and I can't afford a hotel.
Do you want President Trump to consider pausing these tariffs?
Well, what I would do, I've been preaching it on the Senate floor with respect to Canada for the last 2 weeks. I want to see foreign nations lower their tariffs and then us lower our tariffs. If I were Prime Minister Carney, I would think about offering President Trump 0 tariffs from Canada on the U.S. and ask him to reciprocate.
Yeah. Again, yeah. Do I have to comment on that? Yeah. It's like we're going to make things fair. Now I'll give you a little more nuanced approach to all of this because Victor Davis Hanson over at the Hoover Institute, I think when years ago, I don't know why we haven't interviewed him yet. Let's make this happen. But years ago, when Trump was coming around the first time, he was one of the few, there were like pundit types and online people and Twitter people who were supporting Trump. But he was one of the first pure intellectuals supporting Trump the first time around. And here he is. I'm going to read this, but I think you'll appreciate the thoughtfulness and explanation that he explains here as it relates to tariffs. Please, tariff symmetry, a key to reducing the nearly $1 trillion trade imbalance and encouraging foreign investment is the idea that reciprocity and parity roughly zero tariffs on identical/reciprocal tariffs between the U.S. and its trading partners are our primary goals. That is a concept that the American people support wholeheartedly, and even in extremes will continue to do so. But talk of either reparatory tariffs, additional fines on partners for past asymmetrical tariffs, or higher tariffs on countries that either now run deficits with America or have little or no tariffs with the US, will lose public support and only energize opposition to what otherwise is a rational and sympathetic American position on rectifying a half-century of chronic and mounting trade deficits. True, many countries level tariffs under insidiously Machiavellian conditions, such as falsely constructed health and safety barriers, excise and VAT taxes, and currency manipulation. But those complexities should be left for round 2 of the negotiations, since for now the public is most concerned with do unto others as they would do unto you reciprocity. Getting to zero or identical tariffs with a host of current mercantile trading nations would be an outstanding accomplishment, and one that the public needs to digest, appreciate, and savor before in one fell swoop jeopardizing such historic corrections by trying to solve the entire half-century trade quagmire all at once, a task that will lose public support if countries are still tariffed after agreeing to zero or reciprocal tariffs with the US. So that is a beautiful, clean explanation of exactly what's going on here. Some of this will be done in stages. We may not get to zero tariffs with everybody, but we are going to make it a lot better. The two that I keep using, because we can always do cars and everything else, but like, why is it that for us to send cheese to Canada, they have a 300% tariff and we don't tariff their cheese to come here, or rice in Japan? They eat a lot of rice in Japan, but they don't eat American rice because it has a 700% tariff on it. Now, they may go to 0-0 and the Japanese people may be like, you know what, we like our Japanese rice and we're not going to do it. But that's free markets, as opposed to having these ridiculous plundering deals that our leaders got us into. The fault does not, again, it does not lie within the other countries who sat in rooms with our leaders, and our leaders were like, here you go, let's do it. And then the other guys were like, okay, I didn't think we were going to get that, but okay, that's pretty good. And that is what Trump is changing. The other thing that Hansen's referencing there is that this is going to happen in stages. First, we are going to do this initial round of negotiations, which is happening very quickly, which is why some countries are dropping tariffs altogether. And then we can deal with some of the more nuanced things. But what he's also saying is don't punish the countries that took advantage of us. Don't punish them. And that seems right too. Come to the table, come quickly. Trump likes that. And then we will hopefully have peace, at least in a trading sense. We'll have some opponents of all of this in just a moment, but first, 1775 Coffee. I'm going to read it live for you. 1775 and Rumble just teamed up to launch their first ever anti-aging coffee, and it's almost gone. They dropped 1,000 longevity bundles, and after blowing through most of them, they extended the sale and added a couple more. But this is the final push, guys. Once they're gone for good. For just $99, you're getting over $250 in value, including 2 bags of longevity coffee, an ultra rare peaberry roast, and exclusive 1775 merch you won't find anywhere else. This isn't some cheap throwaway promo roast. It's real, bold, high quality coffee. If you believe in America, this is your coffee. And here's the kicker. Every dollar you spend is an entry to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 in cash. That's 99 entries locked in. And with less than a month left, this bundle gives you a real shot. Go to 1775coffee.com/Rubin to grab yours. Fuel up, live long, and start your morning with coffee that stands for something. And if one of the Rubin Report viewers wins the Cybertruck, I will etch the swastika into it myself. That's a Dave Rubin promise for you. Okay, so what kicked all of this craziness off? Well, it was last week we had Liberation Day. That was the day Donald Trump walked out there, big chart, the guy likes to chart, showed some numbers, and then what happened? Well, Trump basically was like, hey, we're going to even this stuff out. China immediately responded with a 34% tariff hike. Well, what happened after that? Well, check this out from Ian Yeager just in. President Trump raises tariffs on China to 104%. This is effective at midnight. And then just today, this is from Bloomberg Business, China raises tariffs on U.S. goods to 84% as trade rift worsens. Now, okay, this is the part of tariffs that people don't like. So if Thomas Sowell was sitting here, I don't think I can exactly quote Thomas Sowell, but Thomas Sowell would say that the problem with tariffs is if you lay in tariffs, then somebody's going, uh-oh, I have a problem at home. I don't want my goods to go up. I'm going to lay in tariffs with you. And then this guy goes, well, you laid tariffs in me. I'm going to raise them. 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 And then who does that? All of those expenses get sent down to? It gets sent down to you, the consumer, that you don't want to get into a trade/tariff war with other countries. Now that appears to be what's happening right now. So at some, especially with China, right? It's not happening with the countries that are coming in and saying, okay, let's start fresh. Now, the difference from a traditional trade war to what's happening with China is we buy a ton of shit from China. China buys very little from us. So they need access to our markets. So while they might be threatening us with more tariffs, at some point, the idea, the goal of all of this is for them to go, boy, we keep getting into this trade war. Now nobody's buying our crap on Amazon anymore. They're starting to produce more in the United States. And now we are losing jobs, we're losing economic value, and we're kind of screwed. Here's Scott Bessent explaining that.
President Trump has maximum negotiating leverage right here, right now. And I think it would be a mistake for anyone to think otherwise. And as I said, many of our trading partners, they have queued up and they have kept their cool. They have not escalated, and they will get priority in the queue. I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. Traditionally, if you look at the history of the trade negotiations, we are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them.
Okay, so that's the key part with China. Let's put all the other countries aside for a moment. You know it. Like literally anything. If I look at the bottom of this thing, I bet you it says made in China. Like just everything you get everywhere. You go to Target, everything's made in China. You buy stuff on Amazon, everything's made in China. We know this, right? You buy a kid's toy, you buy a computer, whatever it is, everything's made in China, or the parts are made in China, and then the people who put it together are made in China, and then they build it somewhere else. All of these things, right? What do they say on the back of Apples when you buy a phone? It's like conceived in San Bernardino, but yeah, what does it say? It says designed in where? Not San Bernardino. Cupertino, made in China. It's like, okay, good. So one guy thought of it over there in America, and then you have all the people putting the little parts in China. But the point is that the way the trade situation is working with them, 1/5 of the stuff goes to them and 4/5 comes to us. So they need our market, unless they're going to be like, okay, we're just not going to sell to America anymore, and we're going to just sell all of our crappy stuff that we jack up the prices crazily on to India instead. And guess what? People in India won't pay the premium that Americans pay. That's just a fact. So that is what they are trying to sort out right now. I saw this from End Wokeness, and I thought this illustrates perfectly kind of the craziness. And this is why I like showing you those old videos, but this through a timeline shows you something interesting here. 1990, America was the top exporter to 175 countries, and China was the top exporter to 8 countries. 10 years later, in 2000, America was the top exporter to 155 countries, and China was the top exporter to 15 countries. 2010, America was the top exporter to 85 countries, and China was the top exporter to 55 countries. 2024, America is the top exporter to 35 countries, and China is the top exporter to 125 countries. And then he commented at the end, he or she, I don't even know actually, from that account, our politicians let this happen. And again, that's the point. That's the point Trump made earlier. China is just taking advantage of the market. Anyone that has had an asymmetrical trade deal with the United States, in some sense, you have to give them kudos. You pat them on the back. You say, good job. You took advantage of our buffoonish, ridiculous leaders who allowed it to happen. You let them plunder the richest nation on earth, and they didn't stand up for American values. That's the thing that Trump is trying to change. Check this out from President Witness, who's an ex-commentator. Here's what's happening tonight with the U.S. 10-year and Chinese yuan. In short, U.S. Treasury yields are rising because China has become a forced seller of UST in order to fund the collapsing yuan. All Trump has to do is keep increasing the tariffs, and this will put the yuan in a death spiral as the CCP is forced to continue selling UST in order to prop up the yuan. It's checkmate Bessent 1. China will be forced to make a deal. They need, the simple version, guys, they need our markets. They also own a ton of our debt. If our money becomes valueless, in essence, they will have no access to get any money back. And again, they've been just playing a better game than us for a long time. Here's Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, on that.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall.
It's so nice to hear somebody competent on television who's telling the truth in a clear way. You can nod along with it and it doesn't give you a searing headache. I don't even know the host of that show. It doesn't even matter, that woman, but she's like, what would 400% tariffs look like? It's like, lady, think for a minute. I know you're on CNN and you're not there to think, and you're just an NPC in an interchangeable chair, and they're going to move on from you in a year from now and all of those things. But the point is not to tariff them 400%. The point is you threaten them with this. Guys, this has been completely unfair forever. And if you don't change the deal, we're going to tariff the shit out of you. And then what's going to happen? It's exactly what he laid out there. That Xi holds on to power the way any leader holds on to power. You hold on to power when your people basically have jobs, when things are basically working. But if suddenly they didn't have jobs because they didn't have access to our markets, Xi would be in a lot of trouble. That is what is going on here. This isn't rocket science, or it's barely Psychology 101. Maybe it's like the first day of Psychology 101. That's how Trump operates. And you can probably learn most of the things you need to know about psychology just in Psychology 101 first day. Let's talk about the European Union, because yeah, they're coming around too. This is from Mario Nafal. EU votes on new tariffs as Trump tightens trade war. The EU is voting today on slapping 25% tariffs on $21 billion worth of U.S. goods in retaliation for Trump's sweeping trade measures. This comes after Trump hit EU imports with a 20% tariff, rejecting their 0-for-0 deal and demanding they buy $350 billion in American energy instead. Trump's earlier moves, 25% tariff on cars, steel, and aluminum, have already rocked global markets, with China and Canada retaliating. Now Europe is stepping in. Goods on the EU list range from meat and clothing to wood and toiletries. Booze was spared after France and Italy objected. The first round of tariffs could hit April 15th, the next wave May 16th, source Newsweek. So I said they were coming around. The point is, there's going to be a game now to be played. That is the point. And Trump will hold it against the countries that don't come around early. So if the European Union thinks that we're unable to make some things here and that we're just going to be endlessly reliant on them, I think that they would have they have some trouble on their hands, because we can make most of the things here. We really can. And I actually think if this thing really escalates, that good, decent Americans would be willing to give up whatever that little pleasure is that you maybe can't get the exact version of. They said champagne from France is exempt or something, but it was like, yes, you could drink Prosecco instead. Like, there's just, if we all had to mature a little bit for a moment and realize that what we'd be doing would be the exact pain point that Trump promised. He didn't promise, it's not a promise. He said would be coming, right? There's going to be a pain point as we do this. Elon, there's going to be a pain point as we do this, but we're doing it. And why are we doing it? Well, Kevin O'Leary just laid all of that out. Chamath Palihapitiya from the All In podcast, who is a billionaire, who has created a ton of wealth and companies and jobs and everything else, was not a Trump supporter first 2 times around, came around on Trump this time around. Here he is explaining that if America doesn't stand up for itself, then, well, nobody's going to stand up for America. Again, not rocket science.
You saw this in COVID. America is totally unprepared to fend for herself if push came to shove. We can't make things here anymore, right? We have kids that can make TikToks, but we don't have scientists that can make drugs. That's not sustainable. That's not a secure country. What they said is there's going to be these price shocks. You're right. So year 1 is difficult, okay? But it could raise upwards of $750 billion a year, okay?
You're saying tariffs.
Tariffs. What they said that they would do is they would then turn around and cut the federal
income tax
for anybody making $150,000 or less to 0.
So what they're doing is using the tariffs to offset the price shock.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, pretty good, right? Like, imagine that. Imagine that. If we could eliminate income tax, we redo these trade deals, we understand we're going to have a little bit of a pain point, and then everyone making under 150. Can we get a number on that? What percentage of Americans are making under 150? It's got to be over 50% of Americans making under 150, right? And then you wouldn't pay any income tax. So then you would get, something like 20% of your money back. It's your money in the first place. Do we have some numbers on there? They're going to check the numbers on 80%. 80% of Americans make under 150 grand a year. Now, you can live on 150 grand, depends if you're married and you have kids and whatever, and where you live, and if you're in a city, suburbs, whatever. But like 150 grand, 80% of Americans would keep your income tax. That means that probably 80% of you guys watching this right now, would you like to have no income tax? No federal income tax? That would be pretty sweet. That means in a place like Florida, I'd have no state income tax. So I'm already saving about 12% that I was paying to Cali, and I'd have no income tax. And by the way, how would the state still operate? Well, there's all sorts of other things built in. Florida, for example, has a huge amount of tourism. We're breaking records still every year. I think they announced it yesterday. And then the people that come in and buy a bunch of shit and stay at your beaches and go to your restaurants, they're going to pick up for that. That's one of the reasons DeSantis is trying to eliminate the property tax here as well. Stop punishing people for living in a certain place. Don't punish them for living in your state, and don't punish them for living in your country. So wouldn't that be something if your income tax suddenly magically disappeared because we had better trade deals? So again, it's just one thing at a time. And anything this is not just about economics. Everyone knows this. Like, this is something you learn when you're pretty young. Anything that's hard to do or worth doing is tough. Otherwise, everyone would do it, right? Easy things are easy, and anyone can do them. Tough things, there's going to be some pain points. There's going to be some challenges. You're not going to make everybody happy. But then hopefully, because it was hard to do, it's worth doing on the other side, right? You see the fruits of it on the other side. That's the point. We'll have more on all this in a moment. But first, Tax Network USA. That's a hell of an ad for what I just said there. Guys, tax season's officially here, and the IRS is turning up the heat. With April 15th deadline fast approaching, now's the time to act. If you've fallen behind or on filing or owe back taxes, delay will only make things worse. Every day you wait increases your risk and the consequences. Don't make the mistake of facing the IRS alone. Tax Network USA is here to help you take control, whether your tax issue's $10,000 or $10 million. Their team of skilled attorneys and seasoned negotiators has rescued over $1 billion in tax debt using proven strategies. Your consultation is absolutely free. Don't wait for another letter or a surprise levy. Put a stop to growing interest, penalties, and threats, and take back control of your finances. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave. Tax season's here. Don't wait for April 15th to make a move. Beat the IRS to it. And now back to me. Okay, so not everybody is happy about what Donald Trump is doing right now. There's a network, have you heard of this place, MSNBC, the televised mental institution known as MSNBC, where they're very, very upset. They're all freaking out. Trump's trying to destroy the economy. He's a fascist. He's Hitler. We've got to blow up a Tesla station. They've got a panoply of things that they're dealing with over there. The Atlantic, which was once, I would say, a roughly sort of, I don't know, somewhat centrist, maybe conservative leaning publication, is now become just like an MSNBC clone, basically. And Atlantic writer David Brooks was on there, and he's not happy with these tariffs. He just wishes Republicans would just go back to their golf courses and shut up.
Yeah, I actually miss the country club Republicans. I like their pink pants, duck ties, all that kind of stuff.
Free markets, anti-Russia. Yeah, they were cool. Yeah.
Give me George H.W. Bush any day. What I just point, Donald Trump was elected with votes of working class voters. And so you would have thought he would have sort of tried to cater to the working class when he got there. He would working class people die 8 years sooner. Maybe do something about that. Working class people are 5 times more likely to have a kid out of wedlock. Maybe do something about that. But they've done nothing of that. And I would cheer on an administration that really tried to help the working class. But they've done nothing of that. Why? Because they're not working class. They don't, in my view, don't care about the working class. And so they're ignoring the real problems. And as Zanny was just saying, they're creating a tremendous financial meltdown just because they want to bring things down. They want to destroy.
These people are just absolutely terrible. And Joe's smiling there. Like, yeah, you like the old school Republicans that just went to the golf course and had their, plaid pants and pink shirt. And you like them because they drink their Arnold Palmers and they would just never change anything, right? They would talk about these things like free markets. I love how Joe, free markets. We loved when Republicans love free markets. You want free markets? Then you'd have free trade deals with countries. It's not free markets when everything that we try to sell gets taxed to high hell and everything coming in gets real cheap. But the idea of having to educate Joe Scarborough is not something I'm doing on this Wednesday. Also, David Brooks, you would be applauding Trump if he was doing something for the lower class, the lower and middle class. Well, they're going to try to eliminate income tax on everyone that's making under 150 grand once we rejigger these trade deals. Is that pretty good? And I have a feeling you won't be for that either because you're just a Trump deranged loser at a failing magazine who gets an appearance on MSNBC. There's a college called Princeton. Have you been there? It's an Ivy League college. It used to be a place of higher learning. It's mostly like just the usual kind of Hamas crazy people and all that sort of stuff. Now, there's a guy by the name of Eddie Glaude who is a professor there. He's been on MSNBC before. We've shown you video of this guy. He's always crying. He doesn't cry in this video, but, he calls you racist.
Have to grapple with it because it's the snake, it's the beast coiled up in the heart, the bosom of the country, as Frederick Douglass said. And the fact that they are doubling down on this shows you what kind of human beings they actually are.
Say more.
We chose a felon who is more interested in loyalty, who's more interested in retribution, who's more interested in grift than in democracy. And we chose a felon because we didn't want to elect a black woman. So to read that, to actually explicate that, is to say we would rather destroy the republic than for that to have happened. And until we grapple with it, there's no amount of protesting I could do. There's no amount of resistance that could come into play to actually force 78 million people to grapple with what motivated them to put themselves in this position.
All right, you ridiculous douchebag in silly glasses. Let me try this. Do you think that I voted for Donald Trump because I didn't want to vote for a black woman? And do you think that that's what, 60 plus million Americans did? We just didn't want to vote for a black woman because we're racist. So we voted to destroy the country with the orange man. Or is it possible that that woman was retarded? She was not qualified to be president. She had a soft coup over a guy who had dementia. She was for opening the borders. She talked about Venn diagrams without even knowing what they were. She did Russia big, Ukraine small. She had a cackle that would make you think she just escaped a mental institution and hadn't had the medication in 2 days. Do you think it had anything to do with that kind of stuff? She was a radical communist, actually, and believed in equity over equality. I mean, we can do a laundry list of things here. Or is it just because we're all racist? So it's not that I didn't want a black woman. I didn't want that black woman, right? Just like you, sir, are an idiot. It doesn't make every black man an idiot. I treat black people like I treat white people. Oh, there's a black man saying something stupid. He must be a stupid person. Oh, there's a black man saying something bright. He must be a bright guy. It's not that complex unless you are a contributor at MSNBC or a man who ran for vice president, who's currently governor of Minnesota, who this guy is just a piece of work. Here he is, a man who's basically accomplished nothing, who there's also something wrong with him. Here he is. I don't think it's not just an accomplishment to become a politician. You can say, okay, he became the governor of Minnesota. Okay, fine. I don't, for some reason, I don't really, that doesn't strike me as like, okay, you can raise money and like say stupid platitudes to become governor of something. No, it's like, what do you do? What do you actually accomplish once you're governor? The guy hasn't done much. Minnesota's in a lot of trouble. Tim Walz, here he is trying to explain how he knows economics, but Trump doesn't.
It's like Trump is stuck in the 80s. His music, his clothing, his thinking. He has been on this tariff thing forever, and every economist, conservative or liberal, will tell you they just simply don't work. We use them strategically, but he doesn't fundamentally understand how trade works. It goes back to what I continue to say. I think the biggest myth perpetuated on this country is that Donald Trump understands anything about business. He's bankrupt every single one he's been into, and now he's bankrupting this country. So I appreciate you talking about this. This is a tax on working people that we've not seen in any of our lifetimes, and it is going to have dramatic effect.
All right, first off, let me be clear. If we went back to 80s style music, oh my God. Like what's playing in the Dave Rubin house all the time? Like, come on. I could do a little 70s too, but like big 80s culture, 80s clothes, bringing back Z Cavaricis with the one pocket. Yeah, I could get on board that. But he also, it's interesting. He says, we don't believe in tariffs. We use them strategically. Oh, so you're saying they do have some value and that other countries, perhaps, Tim, have been using them strategically against us, and now we're using them against them. Moron! Here's Jake Tapper with Tim Walz, and this one gets kind of funny.
President Trump argues that these tariffs are needed to bring American manufacturing back and to help American workers left behind in places like Minnesota. He has support from the UAW. The UAW called his auto tariffs, quote, a long overdue shift away from a harmful economic framework that has devastated the working class. It signals a return to policies that prioritize the workers who build this country rather than the greed of ruthless corporations, unquote.
So you get what just happened there? He's like, tariffs don't work. And then, the UAW, the American Auto Workers, the guys who really can only sell cars in America because they're tariffed to the high hell everywhere else in the world. It makes no freaking sense. They're like, we kind of like what Trump is doing because maybe we'll be able to sell some cars in Europe and maybe we'll be able to sell some cars in the Middle East and Latin America, et cetera, et cetera. But it gets better with Tapper here because here is Trump's Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins, on. And she accuses Jake of being on the left. And there is nothing that a quote-unquote journalist hates more than being told that they have a political opinion.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell says that these tariffs could drive inflation back up and throttle growth. JP Morgan raised the likelihood of a recession by the end of this year from 40% to 60%. So how long do you anticipate this tariff chaos is going to be going on? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Well, first of all, Jake, thank you for having me. I think it's really important to realize that last Wednesday was when the president announced this new American order, the new American economic plan. We're now 2 days in, right? You've got 2 days of data. Everyone, especially on your side, on the left, is freaking out.
I'm not on the left.
But at the end of the day, listen, this whole concept, all right, Jake, thank you. This whole concept is about rebuilding an American economy around American goods, around American industry. We do already live under a tariff regime in this country, but it's the tariff regime of China, of Mexico, of Brazil, of Australia, of countries that Mexico won't take our corn, Australia won't take our beef. The country of Honduras takes more pork than the entire European Union does, American pork, I should say. So from our farming and ranching perspective, which is what I'm focused on, but happy to talk about anything, that it is time for a change, and that's what this president evoked last winter.
Right, so first, she's really good. I mean, that's a calm explanation of everything. Why do we have this asymmetrical thing? Again, Tim Walz, tariffs can be used strategically. Well, yes, they've been strategically used against us, and now we're going to strategically use them the other way. But when she calls Jake part of, I'm not on the left. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that, Jake? So if you're saying you're not on the left, now I get it, you purport to be a journalist. So you're supposed to, so it's really incredible. This is one of the reasons mainstream media has collapsed. The people who spend all day talking politics will also tell you that they have no opinions about politics, right? And of course that's not true. Jake has his opinions. He's either on the left or on the right. But so him to say, I'm not on the left. Well, what do you mean? Are you on the right? What are you, Jake? And what he should have said there was, ma'am, I don't share my political beliefs on the show. Now, that would have been a ridiculous thing to say, obviously, but it's no less ridiculous than saying you're not on the left. I'm fairly certain Jake's on the left. I don't think he's a Republican or on the right. Do we have some kind of, yeah, you got one? Okay.
Everyone, especially on your side, on the left, is freaking out.
I'm not on the left. Is it possible that the Republican Party is now the party of deranged bigots? Do you think it's racist to vote for President Trump in 2020? A Republican from Florida who lost his legs, by the way, fighting for democracy abroad. Mm-hmm. Although I don't know about his commitment to it here in the United States.
Pretty sure you're not on the right, Jake. And there's only two sides, so unless you're the perfect centrist who always calls out each side equally, which we damn well know you're not, I'm pretty sure you're on the left. We've got more. There are some good things happening outside of the trade situation right now as we shift a little bit here as it pertains to immigration. Listen to this from ALX on Twitter. Breaking: Supreme Court sides with Trump administration, will allow them to continue removing Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members from the country under the Alien Enemies Act. So this was one of the things getting hung up in court. Can we use the Alien Enemies Act to get rid of these gang members? Because technically the Alien Enemies Act is about a country. We're not at war with Venezuela, but we are in essence at war with gangs that are coming in here and murdering people and taking over buildings and bringing drugs and everything else. And fortunately, the Supreme Court did decide that, yes, we can use the Alien Enemies Act to get rid of these people. Interestingly, Justice Comey Barrett did not side with the Trump administration on this. So this is, again, the Democrats always want to pack the courts when the courts aren't going their way. And it's interesting because the conservatives on the court often vote with the liberals. Yeah, all the women on the court voted against this thing. We have the cue it up and throw to the clip. Go.
Then when they admit that they did it by accident, they say, it's too late. We have no jurisdiction now. We can't do anything about it. That's not fair. And it can happen to anybody. So, and if we don't stop it now, the scope will get bigger, and then it will happen to you, and then you'll have a problem with it.
I think also you're conflating legal American citizens with people who came here illegally. We do this all the time in these debates. And I think what the administration is trying to do is be as aggressive as possible at deporting different kinds of populations. One, people who've committed heinous, violent crimes. Number two, people that were violent before they came here. Number three, anyone who came here illegally. I mean, look, I'm sorry, but if you came here illegally, no matter how well-intentioned you were, there's probably a decent chance you're going to be sent back. And that's what the administration clearly communicated to the American people in the election. They overwhelmingly voted for it, and it's not particularly a controversial matter.
Yes, that's Scott and the retards. It's nice. I don't even have to have like a proper intro to throw to the clip. Like, again, these guys that he's up against there, it's just him and five of them always. And the guy, again, just can't make the distinction between legal and illegal. That's one of the main tricks that they do. You see it in virtually everything that the left puts out. There's a complete lack of distinction. And then I like how the guy points to Scott. They might come for you. And it's like, Scott, he's an American citizen. He's not a drug dealer or a fentanyl dealer. Can you Google that quick? Has Scott Jennings ever been arrested for dealing fentanyl? That would be a real... But let's say Scott Jennings, sorry, Scott, but let's just say Scott Jennings was dealing fentanyl. You know what would happen to Scott Jennings? There would be a trial, and he would not be kicked out of the country because he's an American citizen. But the hysteria just continues with these people. Let's go back to Tim Walz and Jake Tapper. And again, the lack of distinction between legal and illegal, and they want to starve people and everything else. Here you go.
Donald Trump snatching up college grad students and sending them back or sending folks to El Salvador illegally, that's not the policy. But for us to say, we don't care that violent criminals come in, we most certainly do. What we were asking for is the resources to make sure they don't get here. And the same thing with the other policies. It's not a woke policy. to provide food for children to get breakfast and lunch, and we get better outcomes from that. They defined things on their terms that weren't true. And what I'm saying is, are we going to turn away from being a country of legal immigration? Are we going to turn away from a country that thinks diversity and making sure that we don't have gaps in income between blacks and whites? Those are policies that have strengthened America. And I think what we allowed ourselves to do is we got timid. And then when we got power, we didn't pass things that improved people's lives. This whole idea, I think the Democratic Party gets theoretical, talk about food insecurity. People are hungry, get them food.
Almost everything he said there could have been debunked, but Jake Tapper, because you're on the left, you just sit there. And Jake Tapper, the interesting thing about Jake Tapper is he looks miserable, right? He always looks miserable because he knows he's not doing a good job. He's a nothing who can very rarely share his opinion, because when he does, people then rightly call him out for being on the left. But everything Tim Walz says there was wrong. Tim Walz, you were part of the people who wanted to be president. The lady had the coup and then took you, right? You were sucked in because of that. And what happened? What happened? Well, what happened was in the previous administration, you guys let everybody into this country. So we didn't have the resources. That's funny because somehow Donald Trump magically on day one signs a bunch of executive actions. And then we basically have ended illegal immigration. Every single thing you say is a lie. And if you're concerned about the gap wealth between black and white Americans, although you're never concerned about the gap wealth between white and Asian Americans do a lot more. You don't want to have to think about that because it might have something to do with family and hard work and tradition and all that. But if you're concerned about the purported gap between black and white people, it might be because it's your party that has pushed all of these big government programs that have kept people in cycles of poverty and kept generational people into poverty and handouts and everything else. Because if you keep handing people shit, they will eat shit instead of just treating everyone exactly the same. And then you got to go get yours. But also, this is delicious. Literally. Check this out from the Washington Free Beacon, because Walz was talking about pulling lunches from poor people. No free lunch. Biden administration will pull meal funding for schools that don't comply with its LGBT agenda. So yeah, that's what the Biden administration was doing. If you would not chop off a child's wiener, they were going to starve some other kid. And those are the good guys. Here's Timu Obama, and it could be a problem for him because if Timu goes down, Timu is basically the Chinese, they basically just make knockoffs of all of our shit, and then they sell it on Amazon and everywhere else. And if we start tariffing the hell out of them, I don't know where Hakeem Jeffries is going to go, because he is a Timu Obama. He is a robot. We're working on some AI thing, because I'm telling you, this guy, they are one day, it's just going to be like that. It was the jewelry guy in Men in Black, remember? He gets killed by the bug, and they open up his face, and there's a little alien that's actually controlling him. That is, I'm telling you, Hakeem Jeffries. We got Gavin Newsom's a lizard. This man, there's just a little alien in his head running the thing. Here he is, and it's just this bunch of lies that he was programmed to say about how scary Trump and MAGA are.
These MAGA extremists are trying to jam a reckless budget down the throats of the American people, take away health care from the American people, strip away veterans' benefits from the American people, and hurt nutritional assistance and literally take food out of the mouths of babies in America. Why? Because they want to pass massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors and puppet masters like Elon Musk. This is Republican policy in America, and it's a complete and total disaster.
He is a robot. I'm telling you, he's either a robot or either way, he's still a robot. But he's either a robot being programmed to say that, or there's a little alien living inside a robot with you know what I'm talking about from Men in Black, with the levers and then he dies too, because when the host dies, the alien can't survive. Everything he said there is complete nonsense. Again, this idea that Elon came in so that he could get tax breaks, right? He was like, I really just need some more cash, man. Let me do this. I'm going to live in DC for months. I'm going to have my Tesla stations blown up. I'm going to be called the number 1 or 2 Nazi in America because I just want a little more cash. A guy who's wearing old ratty t-shirts and a MAGA hat wherever he goes. He just needed a little more cash. It's just patently absurd. Also, The tax breaks thing, Timu Obama, tax breaks are good for everybody because it puts more money in people's pocket and less in, oh, this is the problem, less in your pocket because you're part of the problem. You are just a cog in a machine and you just want more money and power for the machine. So as you see America getting screwed less, as you see the economy sort of shaking out and more competition there and people having more money, they'll become less reliant on you. And that's what you're programmed to tell them is the most important thing. Here's Lady Eyelashes, Jasmine Crockett. And yes, she still wants that slavery class to pick her cotton.
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Oh. That's the quiet part you're not supposed to. So we ain't gonna pick some cotton. We're gonna have a permanent underclass of people who gonna pick some cotton. Yeah, we're gonna pay them jack shit and they're gonna live on that plantation and we gonna make them pick our cotton. That's what we gonna do. And she's saying that as she's the good guy. There ain't no amount of money that's gonna make me pick cotton. I'm gonna bring in some people to live like slaves for me. Like, what? And all these idiots are doing is causing Trump's popularity to go up. This is from the Constitutional Conservative. New poll, Trump's approval rating rose to 53%. That's a 4-point increase over last week. And after the implementation of the tariffs, the president's numbers have risen significantly by 13 points since March 7th among those aged 18 to 29. This is huge, right? And guys, that's what's going on here. Trump is doing some things that he set out to do with the warnings that there was going to be some pain points. And what are the Democrats doing? You better pick our cotton because we ain't going to pick the cotton and that's why we're for the illegals. And again, as you know, the robots will be picking the cotton soon enough. And then we'll have an underclass of people who you idiots brought into the country who can't even pick the cotton because robots will be doing that. And then they'll be on the government dole. And why do you want that? It's because you want them to vote for the Democrats in perpetuity. Let's go back to Jake Tapper and Tim Walz, because this, Jake, you're not on the left. I know, Jake, you're not on the left. Here they are talking about Biden's mental decline and everything else and just how bad everything was. And they were both part of it. And now they're trying to explain it to us.
Well, what do you make of the criticism that one of the reasons why your party was so resoundingly rejected last November is because Democrats were gaslighting the country, saying that inflation was not a big deal, heralding Bidenomics. Not only Biden, but Kamala Harris was heralding Bidenomics, pretending that there wasn't a problem at the border. And then fundamentally, this idea that President Biden was up for another 4 years of the job while Americans in poll after poll for year after year were saying he's too old to do the job. Your party stood against all of those things.
Look, Joe Biden coming in and during COVID and being a governor through COVID did a hell of a job. But I think one of the things that we didn't do is we assumed that we said, and it was true, that we were going to have a soft landing and our economy was better than the rest of the world. Better for who? Better for the working class who was saying groceries were too expensive, as they are now and going up.
Don't you think your party needs to acknowledge that President Biden was not up for the job of running for re-election and that this was a major mistake by the
He made that decision.
I know, but you all went along with the idea that he was up for it and he wasn't. And everybody saw it and the country rejected it.
Yeah, well, look, history will tell us to go back on that. That very well could be the case, Jake.
You awful human beings deserve each other. Like, you deserve all of this, Jake, and you deserve all of this, Tim. So he mentions three things there, Jake. Biden economics, which was that we printed a ton of money, right, to help the economy. But of course, what that did was cause inflation to go up because if you just start printing something magically, supply and demand Economics 101. So whether you went to Psychology 101, beginning of the show, or Economics 101, you pretty much can understand what's going on here. Then the border, we know, I don't have to explain that any further. And then the cognitive decline, which Jake has the temerity, he has the balls to be, quote unquote, writing, I know he didn't write it, to write a book about the very thing that he was hiding. Jake, did you say anything about how bad Bidenomics were for the years of Biden? Did you say anything about the border? And did you say anything about the cognitive decline? Why did I? But you didn't. So you're in it. Now you're trying to blame Tim Walz. Tim Walz, why didn't you do a better job with these things? Because he had people like you running cover for him. That's why. We had an internal debate before the show today as to whether every time we show a Scott Jennings clip, whether we're going to play the retard stinger. That's what they're called, little intro stingers. And we said, yes, we're going to show the retard stinger every time.
These books, first of all, seeing that video of Kamala Harris and then these videos of Tim Walz the last few days, man, did we dodge a bullet. Lord have mercy. These books coming out.
Walking into the fire right now,
These
Scott.
books coming out. It can all be told now. I mean, I sat here all during the campaign and was assured Joe Biden was fine. Kamala Harris had the most organic, grassroots-driven campaign. The Democrats were unified. We had a campaign of joy. And everything was hunky-dory. That's what I was told night after night after night. And now all the books are coming out, and it's amazing because a lot of the people who were telling those lies are now going to get paid to write those books.
I think a lot of people,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that betrayal, being lied to their face about Biden's health, about the strength of the party.
Our own government,
that.
from the White House podium lied to us about his condition and covered it up. And even Ron Klain, the former chief of staff, is now saying things that are crazy
So
when
we
you
can
read
agree
them
that lying
today.
is wrong, right, Scott?
Right.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I agree.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I agree that we lived through the biggest scandal in modern American politics. John Avlon, yes.
All right. I gotta leave it there.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to play it every single time because it's true. All they can do is laugh at the end. So these people who ran cover for the Democrats, I love how the fact that he's going after Jake Tapper directly. The very same people who are running cover are getting paid to write books about it. He's talking about Jake, who's probably downstairs at the commissary right then having soup. And good for you, Scott. That's exactly right, because they gaslit the shit out of us. You didn't fall for it. I didn't fall for it. But we do have to accept that millions and millions and millions of Americans did fall for it. And the gaslighting continues today. I want to show you this tweet from Andrew Yang. Now, Andrew Yang, he's not that relevant anymore, but there was a period when he ran for president, 5 years ago. I had him on the show. He's a nice guy. He likes basketball. Perfectly nice guy, but he was sort of at the time when he ran a couple of years ago, he was like, oh, the liberals aren't completely insane yet, or the progressives, they're not completely insane. I'll still be a Dem. And when I had him on the show, I kept being like, it was obvious to me that he needed to move over, but he just couldn't kind of do it because the liberals like always pretending they're better than the conservatives. And he wrote this on Twitter yesterday. He wrote, I have never seen so much value destroyed deliberately. This is the worst leadership ever. So what he's talking about, obviously, is Liberation Day, the tariffs kicking in, and the fact that the stock market did drop significantly. And it did, by the way. I opened my app again this morning. I have less money now than I've had in 5 years, let's say, something like that. I'm not thrilled about that, but I also am willing to take the certain pain point to fix things. But now I want to show you a tweet that he wrote back in 2019. He wrote, the bottom 80% of Americans own 8% of the stock market wealth, and the bottom half own essentially zero. Anyone who pays attention to stock prices as a barometer of how Americans are doing is missing how most people live. Can you give me the other thing he just said yesterday again? Because I think, Andrew, I have never seen so much value destroyed deliberately. This is the worst leadership ever. So 5 years ago, if you cared about the stock market, you don't really understand anything. Now it goes down by 10% as we're trying to reorder things, and it's the worst leader ever. Completely and utterly ridiculous. And by the way, for Democrats and a guy like you who wants, he wanted universal basic income, which basically in some sense is communist, shouldn't you be happy right now? Because most of the people who really got hit, shouldn't the Democrats really be applauding right now? The Democrats hate rich people. They hate people who create wealth, right? They hate anyone who has more than them, basically, right? So Bernie used to hate the millionaires. Then Bernie became a millionaire. He started hating the billionaires. But shouldn't they all be applauding? Because most of the people, to Yang's point, that just lost a whole bunch of money are the people with money. So the rich people are a little poorer. This is where you guys should be out there sharpening your guillotines, being like, okay, we're getting a little close to May Day. But let's continue, because the Democrats will not stop their train to lunacy. So we've talked obviously about economics. We've talked a little bit about the border. We've talked about the Biden cognitive stuff. Let's talk about, speaking of guillotines, chopping off children's genitals. They're still on board that. And these are the 80-20 issues that Trump wins. He wins and wins and wins because most people fundamentally have something inside them that knows the difference between right and wrong. Apparently, they don't have that mechanism in Colorado, where the Colorado House Democrats passed a bill that classifies misgendering your child as child abuse.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1312. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1312 has passed.
That is California level bananas BS right there. So that means that if your child, you have a 7-year-old, and that child has been infected by the woke mind virus because they go to a Colorado public school where they're teaching this nonsense, and your child's name when you raised him as a boy was Brian, but now at school they've been calling him Brianna for a year, and they don't mind that he dresses up like a girl. You find that out and you refuse to call your son Brian Brianna. They have now decided that, well, the Colorado State Democrats have decided that that will qualify as child abuse. How long till the state starts taking kids away from their parents? Misgendering. It's misgendering when you call a child by a pronoun that is not applicable to them. But these people still have not stopped on this. So how do we end a show like this? We end a show like this, the way I like to end a lot of these shows, is that you've just got to stand up in the face of the nonsense. Byron Donalds, congressman from Southwest Florida, who is running for governor once DeSantis finishes his term in 2 years from now. Here he is arguing with leftists about child genital mutilation. And if you just stand up for the truth, usually they will fold and or go crazy or expose themselves as people who don't know what they're talking about.
Do you agree as a member? Hang on, I'm sorry, ma'am. But as a member of Congress, because I was just in D.C. on Monday for Trans-State Visibility, and I would like you, as a member of Congress, to rise up and support LGBTQ plus youth and stop this insane attack on our children who know who they are.
Number one,
no. Of course you're not, because you're a fascist. You're a trace. You're a race traitor and you are a fascist.
I asked you a question. Says you wanted me to. I said I don't agree, and then you start yelling at me. You call me a fascist. You call me a race traitor, and you want me to agree with you? What are you talking about, ma'am? I'm a constitutionalist. Ma'am, I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in freedom and liberty for everybody. I believe in the U.S. Constitution. I believe in everybody's freedoms and rights. But if I don't agree, look, hold on. But when I don't agree with you, then all of a sudden I'm a fascist. That's what's wrong. If all you want to do is yell and scream and curse when I don't agree with you, I'm sorry, ma'am. You are now in the 20% of America.
Yeah, good job, Byron. The fact that she called him a race traitor, let's put aside the LGBTQ stuff for just a second. And the fact that she asked him a question, and the second he spoke, literally the second he said the first word, she tried to slice him down, right? But the idea that he's a race traitor, we saw this last week. We played you a clip where I think it was Jasmine Crockett, right, who called Byron Donalds a race traitor because he has a white wife. Maybe she's Latina. I don't even know. I don't even care. These people are dangerous. Like, they're actually someone like that. I don't mean to make it about this one random woman, but the hysteria. I sympathize with her in some sense. An entire system broke that woman's brain. I know Byron pretty well. He doesn't want anyone not to be treated equally. He doesn't want anyone not to be treated with respect. He doesn't want kids' genitals to be chopped off. And by the way, not wanting a kid's genitals to be chopped off doesn't make you a fascist. Can I get the exact definition of fascist? I really want to nail it perfectly. But fascism, I can tell you off the top of my head, it's usually the collusion between government forces and giant corporations. I just want to make sure if you give me the exact definition of fascism, that it doesn't say anything about chopping kids' genitals off. Can we just get that real quick? We're working on it. It's there's nothing about so if you're a fascist, it's ambivalent on whether you want to chop genitals off of kids. I think you get the point, guys, right? You get the point. We are dealing with a certain set of people in this country now whose brains have been broken. Here, I can give you the exact definition of fascism, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something about chopping kids' genitals off. Many experts see fascism as a mass political movement centered around extreme nationalism, militarism, and the placement of national interests above those of the individual. Curious. So he's a fascist because he doesn't want kids to have their nuts cut off. So we got to deal with some stuff. But the point is, if you're on the 80-20 side, and that's what he said right there at the end, right? It's lady, you're taking a 20% issue here and making it above everything. But if we take the right issues, if we start dealing with these things sort of maturely and professionally, like we've done with the border that is now largely being fixed, like we're dealing with some of the crime stuff, like we're dealing with the deportations, like we're now dealing with the trade things, then things will get better. But I'm telling you right now, the hysteria is going to get ramped up. All they will be left with is hysteria, and then there is one other thing, which is violence, right? Right now, they're mostly in hysteria mode, which is why they're still out there, screaming and all of this other stuff, right? They're out there screaming, and they're burning down Tesla things and everything else. But the other piece will be the violence. But if we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, we can fix things so that maybe if everything really starts getting fixed, that it will be less appealing to go burn down a Tesla charger station, or it will be less appealing to tell a black congressman that he's a race traitor because he doesn't believe in what you believe, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we got a jam-packed day today, so I got to get going, but we do have a post-game show. RubinReport.locals.com, 30 seconds. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Hey everybody, I'm here with my client Troy, and we were set for trial tomorrow in Harris County. And Troy was not in a good position because he was looking at a minimum of 25 years to life in TDC if he was convicted in any of these cases. But today we've got some good news. I've got some papers to give to Troy. He gets trial day dismissals. Number 1, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, dismissed. Felon in possession of a weapon, dismissed. Tampering with a witness, dismissed. Assault of a pregnant person, dismissed. 4 felonies, dismissed. No trial. He goes home a free man. If y'all need me, get at me. Better call JG. Troy?
Hey man, y'all need a lawyer, real good lawyer. Come holler at Joseph Gagliardi. Better call JG on IG. Come to 290 Inc. You need a tattoo. I'm getting ready to go get my lawyer's name tattooed across my chest.